ever since she ascended to the throne. On February 6, 1952, Queen Elizabeth II has had the opportunity to meet a great number of famous people hailing from a wide range of backgrounds and locations all over the world. The Queen, who is well known for her kindness, frequently gives off the impression of being both friendly and hospitable. On the other hand, there have been times in which her behavior or statements have suggested that she feels uncomfortable or irritated around certain celebrities. It was Diana, Princess of Wales, who was one of the most renowned figures who left such an influence on Queen Elizabeth, tragically. Diana was killed in a vehicle accident in Paris on August 31, 1997, and her death devastated the entire globe. When the event was over, Queen Elizabeth's answer was subjected to a great deal of scrutiny as a result of her decision to remain at Balmoral with her heartbroken grandsons. The Queen chose to keep a low profile and avoid engaging with the media. This decision was met with criticism with many people, assuming that it was the result of years of strain brought on by Diana's unhappy marriage to Prince Charles and her honest conversations with journalists, such as Martin Bichet. On the other hand, Ingrid Seward, the author of The Queen and Di, presents an alternative viewpoint. She thinks that the Queen's silence was not a result of residual resentment, but rather a reflection of the great grief that she was experiencing. According to royal scholar Matthew Dennison, Queen Elizabeth had a degree of sympathy and personal liking for Diana, which indicates that her reaction was rooted in sadness rather than hatred regarding Diana's passing. On the other hand, this does not necessarily imply that the Queen did not find Diana's actions to be slightly concerning or perplexing at any point. The many sad visits that Diana made to the Queen, as stated by Seward, became something that Her Majesty increasingly anticipated with a sense of unease over the course of time. In addition, Dennison suggests that the Queen may have had a difficult time understanding why Diana would occasionally behave in a manner that appeared to be detrimental to the monarchy. Taking into consideration the position she held inside the institution that she had married into, it was Jackie Kennedy, despite the fact that The Crown portrays a fictionalized version of the events that took place. One episode that stands out is the one in which Queen Elizabeth invites Mr. and Mrs. John F. Kennedy to Buckingham Palace for supper. In the show, First Lady Jackie Kennedy is depicted as expressing her dissatisfaction with the Queen, describing her as indifferent, lacking in intelligence, and uninteresting. She also expresses her disapproval of the palace, describing it as mediocre, abandoned, and depressing. It is essential to keep in mind, however, that The Crown is a fictitious story that is based on actual events. Although such depictions make for riveting television, it is possible that they may not necessarily reflect the circumstances that actually occurred. There is not a single piece of information that can be considered conclusive that Jackie Kennedy thought of Queen Elizabeth in such a terrible way, despite the fact that it is likely that the Queen may have had her own reasons for finding the American celebrities somewhat annoying. It is possible that those reasons were not as dramatic as they were portrayed on TV. There was a lot of pressure on the Queen to invite Mrs. Kennedy's sister Lee Radwell, despite the fact that she had some qualms about it because Radwell was involved in a divorce. However, according to a story that was told by Jackie's friend, the writer Gore Vidal, the Queen had her own unique approach to dealing with the matter. The decision was made by her to not extend invitations to two individuals who had been particularly requested by Mrs. Kennedy to attend the dinner. These individuals were Princess Marina of Greece and Denmark, as well as Princess Margaret, the sister of the Queen. Despite the fact that the specific dynamics of that dinner are still a matter of speculation, it is clear that the conversations that took place in real life may have been more sophisticated than what was portrayed in the television series. It is Vladimir Putin. Queen Elizabeth II is supposed to maintain strict political neutrality in order to fulfill her role as the head of state in the constitutional monarchy that governs the United Kingdom. Furthermore, she is not permitted to vote or take part in elections in spite of this. There is a fascinating tale that dates back to 2003 that reveals that the Queen had her moments of personal reactions to major world leaders. A visually challenged individual named Lord David Plunkett, who was serving as the Home Secretary of the United Kingdom at the time, had a humorous incident with his guide dog Sadie. During the historic visit that Russian President Vladimir Putin made to the United Kingdom in the year 2003, it was during a program that was broadcast on the BBC in 2019. That Blanket recalled that Sadie's reaction to meeting President Putin was to bark loudly. This prompted Blanket to apologize to the Queen for the disruption that the barking caused. In response, the Queen offered a rather cryptic comment. Remarking dogs have interesting instincts, don't they? This anecdote provides a glimpse into a lighter moment involving the Queen's interaction with a world leader, demonstrating her sense of humor and diplomacy. Even in situations where political neutrality is paramount, there is still a lack of clarity regarding the particular cause of any apparent irritation with former President Putin. It is Meghan Markle. There has been a lot of tension and controversy around the relationship that exists between Queen Elizabeth II and Meghan Markle, who is her granddaughter-in-law, even though she has moved to the United States and stepped back from her obligations as a member of the royal family. Meghan, who is married to Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, continues to hold the title of Duchess of Sussex. Meghan's evident interest in politics, which contrasts with the Queen's obligation to stay politically neutral, is one prominent feature that may have created some discomfort for the Queen. This is because the monarch is required to remain politically neutral. During the month of October 2021, Meghan made news when she wrote letters to the leaders of the United States Senate, Charles Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, encouraging them to pass legislation that would force working parents to take paid leave during the pandemic. The active involvement of the royal in political problems caused royal supporters to express their worries, which ultimately led to calls for the revocation of her title. There is still a lack of clarity regarding whether or not Queen Elizabeth II will take any action in this area. On the other hand, the gap that exists between Meghan and the Queen extends far beyond their political disagreements. Meghan has made a public accusation of racism against the royal family and has discussed the challenges she encountered both within the institution and from the media, which affected her mental health. She has also spoken about the difficulties she faced. On the other hand, royal researcher Ingrid Seward has observed that the Queen has expressed her regret for the restricted relationship she has with her great-grandson Archie, and most likely her newborn great-granddaughter Lilibet. Without a question, the tense relationship that exists between the two is a result of the many different elements that are involved. I am Donald Trump, the former President of the United States. Donald Trump holds the rare distinction of being a source of displeasure for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. This is due to a personal incident that occurred during his visit to the United Kingdom in June 2019 in connection with World War II commemorations. It was during this visit that President Trump accidentally caused irreparable damage to the grounds of Buckingham Palace, which is considered to be one of the most valued properties of the Queen. The matter became a matter of contention when President Trump insisted on arriving at Buckingham Palace by helicopter not just once but twice within the span of a single day. It is important to note that the lawn of the palace was not intended to be used as a landing pad for helicopters. As a result, scorched scars and craters were left behind in the grass, which caused substantial damage to the otherwise perfect lawn. Another royal visit brought up the subject of the damage that was inflicted by Trump's chopper, which became a matter of conversation. Her Majesty invited Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison into the grounds during his visit to the Queen in connection with D-Day during his tour. Her Majesty showed him the effects of Trump's helicopter landings. "Come and look at my lawn. It's ruined," she reportedly said, expressing her disgust at the situation. The Queen has previously expressed her displeasure with Trump's use of helicopters, and this specific event was not the first time she had done so. When the Queen was laughing with Sir David Attenborough about how the sound of a noisy airplane reminded her of Trump's visit, it was Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger. The legendary frontman of the Rolling Stones was knighted and given the title of Sir Michael Philip Jagger in the year 2003, following the nomination of Jagger for knighthood by the then Prime Minister Tony Blair. This award was bestowed upon him during the celebration of Jagger's birthday in June. It was widely reported that Queen Elizabeth II personally bestowed this prestigious honor onto Jagger. However, there is an unusual twist to the story. The Queen was not actually present at the event when Jagger was knighted. Rather than that, she was recuperating at the hospital after having knee surgery. There is a school of thought that proposes the Queen purposefully chose that particular day for her surgical procedure in order to give herself a convenient excuse for her absence. Jagger's knighthood, which was supported by Blair, a self-proclaimed lover of Jagger, and the Rolling Stones, was met with opposition from Queen Elizabeth II for a number of reasons. As it turned out, she was concerned about Jagger's perceived lack of involvement in philanthropic causes, despite the fact that he had a large personal wealth and had been living outside of the country since the early 1970s. This odd relationship may have played a crucial influence in the Queen's hesitation to accept Jagger's knighthood, which turns out to be a fascinating chapter in the history of the royal family. This is Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister, in accordance with the constitutional mandates of the British monarchy. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II is recognized for her unwavering dedication to maintaining a neutral stance on political issues. However, it seems that the Queen may have faced difficulties in preserving this neutrality during the 11 years that Margaret Thatcher served as Prime Minister. This suggests that the Queen may have suffered difficulties in a report that was published by the Sunday Times. It was stated that the Queen was reportedly disturbed by a number of initiatives that were implemented by Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. The Queen's feelings toward Thatcher, who served as Prime Minister from 1979 until 1990, were complicated. These feelings went beyond their divergent political perspectives and encompassed personal conflicts that surfaced during their routine meetings to discuss matters pertaining to the government. Overall, the Queen's feelings toward Thatcher were complicated. It was reported that these scheduled encounters, which were frequently characterized by Thatcher's punctuality and the Queen's occasional tardiness, achieved very little in terms of success. It is reported that Thatcher felt the presence of the Queen to be unnerving, which contributed to the tense mood. Furthermore, their divergent senses of humor presented yet another obstacle, since the Queen was renowned for her acerbic wit, but Thatcher was considered as having a restricted sense of humor. A further point to consider is that the Queen's preferences were not aligned with Thatcher's tendency to engage in extended conversations during their meetings. In the documentary titled The Queen and Mrs. Thatcher, An Inconvenient Relationship, which was released in 2015, it was even stated that the Queen occasionally made fun of Thatcher's accent. A deeper understanding of the complexity of the relationship between the forceful Prime Minister and the monarch can be gained through the examination of this fascinating interplay in the year that followed their wedding. Vanity Fair published an article stating that the lively Duchess of York had successfully charmed the Queen. Their wedding ceremony, which took place at Westminster Abbey, was a significant event. In the course of this time period, it appeared that the Queen and Fergie had developed a strong and intimate relationship. Nevertheless, this connection started to weaken when the Yorks made the decision to publicly proclaim their separation in the year 1992. According to the documentary Royals at War, which was released in 2019, the Queen's response to the breakup of the marriage was a mixture of sadness and annoyance. She was not only dismayed by the loss of the union, but she was also concerned by Fergie's handling of the matter. However, this event signaled the beginning of a time that was fraught with turmoil. The revelation of Fergie's love engagement with an American businessman was revealed by the appearance of intimate images within a short period of time. Even more alarming was the fact that these images showed the businessman in a sexually suggestive position, as if he was sucking on Fergie's toes directly in front of their daughter. Princess Beatrice, who was just 4 years old at the time, not only did the general public but also members of the royal family, including the Queen, was shocked by this scandalous news. According to reports, the Queen's response to the images was comprised of a great deal of rage. Almost immediately, she asked that Fergie promptly leave the residence that the royal family resides in, which is located in Balmoral. The Queen's profound, long-standing displeasure and irritation with Fergie lasted for a number of years, at least until the year 2013. The question that remains, however, is whether or not there has been any sort of reconciliation in their relationship. In the wake of Prince Andrew's departure from the royal family, there is still a great deal of mystery and conjecture around the ongoing relationships that exist within the royal family. Lady Camilla Parker Bowles, Duchess of Cornwall, at the time when Prince Charles, Duke of Cornwall, set out on his journey to marry Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman he had loved for a very long time. In 2005, his mother, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, was noticeably absent from the wedding. This was a notable omission that was between two divorcees whose extramarital involvement had been a substantial factor in the breakdown of their prior marriages. On the other hand, Tom Bower's biography of Prince Charles, which was published in 2018 and written under the title Rebel Prince, The Power and Passion and Defiance of Prince Charles presents an alternative viewpoint. Bower thinks that the Queen's actual issue may have been her personal qualms about Camilla herself. In addition to the couple's extramarital connection, this is despite the fact that Bower acknowledges the authenticity of the Queen's religious objections. Bower claims that the Queen frankly communicated to Charles one evening after a few martinis her firm opinion that she could never forgive Camilla for her involvement in Charles's previous marriage. She even went so far as to describe Camilla as evil. Bower's account of the conversation is based on the actual events that took place. In spite of this, it would appear that the Queen has become more lenient in her treatment of Camilla and her marriage to Prince Charles. Over the course of time, Boris Yeltsin, the first president of Russia, who served from 1991 until 1999, made a trip to London in 1992. This particular trip marked a brief 8-year span during Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth's second nearly 7-decade reign. The actions of Yeltsin during his visit caused questions to be raised, as was disclosed in records from the government that had been classified in the past and were from the 1980s and 1990s. And both of these actions were seen having a profound understanding of the gravity of the situation. Residents and politicians alike in the United Kingdom started sending their most sincere well wishes to the royal family. The members of the royal family were hurriedly called to Balmoral Castle, which was the residence of Queen Elizabeth II at the time of the summons. In the period of time between 1 and 4:30 o'clock in the afternoon, her closest family members gathered together in a private setting in addition to those who were present. Princess Anne, who later posted a heartfelt homage to her mother on Instagram, was also present. She disclosed that she had spent the Queen's final day in her company and showed her undying support for her brother's forthcoming royal obligations. She also mentioned that she had spent the day with the Queen. Additionally, King Charles, Prince William, and Prince Harry made their way to the Queen's residence as the day progressed in order to be present with her during the final moments of her life. At 6:30 o'clock in the evening, Buckingham Palace broke the devastating news that Queen Elizabeth II had gone away in a calm and serene manner. A collective sense of sadness and introspection was left behind as the news spread throughout living rooms all over the world. It took only 10 minutes for an official announcement to be posted on the gates of the palace, which caught many people off guard. This was especially true for those individuals who had arrived at the palace in response to the earlier health concerns that had been reported immediately upon the news of the Queen's departure. Tributes began pouring in from heads of state from all over the world, highlighting the significant influence that hair had on the international arena. There were many leaders that expressed their sympathies and appreciated the significance of the Queen's legacy. These leaders included Emmanuel Macron, Vladimir Putin, and others. A hole that would be keenly felt by the entire world had been left behind as a result of the passing of a figurehead who had been a consistent presence throughout their lives. Her legacy is one that will continue to have an impact on the monarchy of the United Kingdom and will reverberate all across the world. We would like to extend an invitation to you to express your thoughts on the enormous impact that Queen Elizabeth's life and reign had on the world as we commemorate the closing chapter of this amazing reign. In what ways do you think she will be remembered in the annals of history, and what are some of the most cherished memories you have around her reign? Preserve your connection with us. Don't forget to show your support by liking and subscribing to our channel. This will allow you to gain access to additional riveting insights into the life and times of exceptional personalities such as Queen Elizabeth II. We are grateful that you have joined us. I will see you again soon. Anthony formulated a plan to intervene in the scenario as a planned effort to regain control of the situation. Robin had sent a letter to Margaret, which revealed the personal nature of their relationship. He instantly delivered the letter to the Queen Mother after intercepting it and revealing the nature of their relationship. This was followed by Anthony's demand that Margaret completely cut all relations with Robin. The use of this strategy not only relieved him of what he considered to be an irritation, but it also definitely placed the blame for the failing status of their marriage onto Margaret herself. It was his hope that by doing so, he would be able to gain more independence for his developing career and his future endeavors. It was a move that would have been worthy of a grandma of chess, and the drama that ensued was comparable to that of a Shakespearean tragedy. In the end, Princess Margaret gave in to Anthony's demands and severed her relationship with Robin Douglas Home through the termination of their partnership. Even though their affair had only lasted for a short time, the effects of it would prove to be quite uncomfortable. In a tragic turn of events, Robin Douglas Home took his own life only 18 months later when he was only 36 years old. One may have anticipated that this tragic turn of events would act as a wake-up call for Anthony or Margaret. This sad event marked the beginning of years that were marked by infidelity between them, and their relationship became progressively bitter as a result of this infidelity influence. When it came to expressing his displeasure with Margaret, Anthony in particular resorted to ways that were quite juvenile. He produced a list of complaints and placed them in a book that was meant to be discovered by her. In the book, he made harsh and disparaging statements throughout the book. "I despise you because you have the appearance of a Jewish manicurist." As stated in one of the comments, there were other instances in which his actions were even more blatant and confrontational. For example, Anthony would rudely interrupt her at social gatherings with disparaging comments such as "shut up and let someone intelligent talk." Those who were in close proximity to them experienced an uncomfortable atmosphere as a result of their behavior. Despite the fact that Anthony seemed undisturbed by the tension, Margaret felt herself completely consumed by a sense of intense dissatisfaction. A situation occurred in the middle of October 2021. Just over a week before Queen Elizabeth II made the announcement that she would not be attending the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow. During this incident, Her Majesty was seen expressing apparent irritation towards certain world leaders who had not yet confirmed their attendance at the conference. It was on October 15th that this incident took place, which was during the Queen's visit to Cardiff, Wales, where she was inaugurating the Welsh Parliament. Queen Elizabeth II made a reference to the COP26 meeting while she was having a conversation with her daughter-in-law, Camilla Parker Bowles, who is the Duchess of Cornwall, and Elin Jones, who is the presiding officer of the Welsh Parliament. The Queen's frustration was obvious. As she said, "I've been hearing all about Carpath." It was during this conversation that she used the word irritating, referring to the fact that world leaders were holding discussions but not taking any meaningful action. There was conjecture that the Queen might have been making a reference to a number of other leaders, including Chinese President Xi Jinping, but she did not specifically identify any leaders by name. Despite the fact that Buckingham Palace declined to issue a comment regarding the incident, Transport Secretary Grant stated that the Queen's statements were not intended for public broadcast. This adds an extra degree of mystery to the case. We really hope that you found this glimpse into the Queen's interactions with notable personalities, whether they were favorable or negative, to be interesting reading. Have any of these people taken you by surprise by any means? In the comments section below, please share your ideas. If you are interested in hearing more gripping tales about the life of Her Majesty and the fascinating world of royalty, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and keep an eye out for additional content in the future.